Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. If you can see or have been following, we are in a new location. And I know that I said that maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm not really sure, to be honest. But this is location number 3. But this one's a lot more exciting. And here's why it's exciting. Because I am in my very own office. That is correct. The Aim and Anchor coaching is just taking it up a notch. I got my fancy desk here and my fancy chair, and it's awesome, and I love it. I can't tell you how much I love it. But you don't need to hear about that. That's not why you're here, to watch or listen. You're here to hear about the Enneagram and obviously all that fun stuff. If you're brand new for some reason and you've just happened to stumble upon us, my name is Brandon. I'm an Enneagram coach. And if you don't know what the Enneagram is, go back and listen to episode 1 and 2. They're short-ish. And I'm doing my best to get these shorter and shorter. If you've been following along, you're seeing the times are getting shorter. I'm very impressed with myself. And I hope that you are impressed with me as well. Just for the time thing. Not really much else, but I hope you all are well, and I'm excited. It's really cool to see like the audience growing as we continue to move forward in this new adventure that is Aim and Anchor podcast. This week on the podcast, I want to continue a little bit of what we talked about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I shared briefly on the 9 lies, the lie for each type that each type believes will help get the needs of each person met. And when we believe those lies, we tend to go into situations and twist the thing that could be good in order to get our needs met. And a lot of times this is subconscious. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to go into each one again, and then I just wanted to share some fun information that I found very helpful this week. So with that being said, let's go into the 9 lies, and you can also look at these as the core motivations for each one of the types. I was recently watching a talk that Ian Cron did, and I just really appreciated some of the things that he was saying. And so one of the things that he said, and that's how I want to kind of start today off with, is whatever story you're in, it's most likely the wrong story. Now let's break that down. I haven't said this yet on the podcast, but each of us have a type, but we aren't our type, if that makes sense. What we're trying to get at with that is we have a type. That's the personality and the ego that have attached itself to us in order for us to get our needs met. And that's the lie that we believe to be true, right? So what the Enneagram does actually is it helps us understand, and it shows us what the lies are and what we believe to be true. Those things aren't true, but what we believe to be true. And then each one of those motivates each of us in thinking, feeling, and acting. Okay, and that's reference to the centers of intelligence. And we do all of these things based on these lies to get our needs met. And we accept what we see in front of us as truth, which is usually coming from an old, out-of-date, false storyline. Because each of the types is really like a narrative, basically. It's a narrative, and it's what we are telling ourselves, which is usually told through the eyes of a child. Us, each one of us, we're living life through a narrative of the eyes of the children that we once were. So, these lies or unconscious motivations we believe to be true. They just simply are not. And one of the other things that Ian said in this little interview that he did, He said, just because you know your type or your number doesn't mean that you actually know you. And that hit home for me, because as a type 9, when I discovered the Enneagram years ago, I was listening to this podcast and I felt like somebody had started speaking into my soul. It's like they knew the things that I had thought and felt and dealt with without ever saying it to anybody else in the entire world, and that was terrifying. That was terrifying. I just smacked the microphone. I hope it wasn't too loud. I got a little too excited there. But I just remember hearing this podcast and going, man, this is like somebody knows what's happening internally. It's like somebody spied on me. But just because we know our type or a number doesn't mean that we know us. And that's what the Enneagram helps us do. It helps us identify the type, the struggles that the type has, and then it gives us opportunities to move outside of that type. You might hear people say, I don't like being put in a box with all these personality types and whatever the case may be. And what the Enneagram does that's different is it doesn't type based on personality, it's based on motivations, core fears and desires and longings and things that are moving us forward. So it shows us all of these trappings and then gives us a way out of that so that we can become better. We can know ourselves better. We can be friends with ourselves and get to know that the storyline that our past child self is telling. Okay? So I'm going to read you a Carl Jung quote. Thoroughly unprepared, we take the step into the afternoon of life. Worse still, we take this step with the false presumption that our truths and our ideals will serve us hitherto. But we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be little at evening, and what in the morning was true at the evening will become a lie. So to simplify that down, we can boil it down this way, and this is how Ian Cron would boil it down. I heard it in a podcast, I don't know, a year and a half ago. I'm not sure. But the way he boiled it down, I liked it. It's simplified. What helps you in the morning of life will constrict and kill you in the evening of life. Meaning, the things that worked for us at the beginning of our lives doesn't necessarily mean that they will work for us later in life, right? I mean, once we say it that way, it makes sense, but we believe these things to be true as we get older and older and older. And the way that we're wired as humans, it's to conserve calories. So that thing that used to work for us, it's just easier to keep doing that because we believe it to work. And the effort to try to better that or grow in it is just too much. There's 1,000 things happening in each of our lives every day, right? But what helps you in the morning of life will constrict and kill you in the evening of life. And that's what the Enneagram helps us do. It helps us understand the old narrative, the narrative that, Kid Brandon said, as long as you keep the peace, as long as you don't upset anybody, and as long as you do what you're told, then everything will be fine. You'll get all the things that you want and need. And as an adult in my 30s, that just doesn't work anymore. If I want to get what I want or I need to go towards what I need, I have to say that out loud. I have to assert myself. I have to say, hey, you know what? My voice and my presence is important and it matters enough to me to say that out loud. And just risk the fact that it might upset somebody and I might jump into conflict. And that's terrifying for us 9s, right? But that's not always true. So, let's read through each of the lies, and then I'm going to give you 3 questions before we finish up. Type 1. The lie that you believe is, to be loved and good, I must perfect myself and others in the world and never make mistakes. Type 2. To be loved and appreciated, I have to help and meet the needs of others while denying my own. Type 3. People only value others for what they do, not for who they are inside. And I must avoid failure at all costs. Type 4. To be loved and seen and not abandoned, I must be special and unique. Type 5s. To be safe in the world, I must accrue as much knowledge and information as possible to fend off feelings of ineptitude. To be safe, Type 6. To be safe in the world, I must think about and plan for the worst and look to outside authorities to help me make decisions, because I don't fundamentally understand my own ability to make those decisions. In order to feel safe in the world, Type 7s, I must avoid painful feelings and situations by thinking and planning a future filled with unlimited possibilities and fun. Type 8s. In order to remain in control and safe in a hostile world, I must present and assert strength and power over the environment and others to mask vulnerability and weakness. And our Type 9s. The lie you believe is to be loved and to maintain a sense of internal and external peace. I must avoid conflict and merge with the agendas of others. I don't know about you, but that's hard to hear when I get to mine. I don't like that in me. I want to be better at it, and that takes courage. It takes effort. It takes energy to jump into those spaces and work on ourselves. So, in order to do that this week, as you think about what that lie is, this week I want you to ask yourself three questions. In a moment, when you feel that internal anxiety rising, or the fear just starts to overwhelm, maybe the shame sets in so heavily that you can't get out of bed. I'm not sure where it finds you, but ask yourself three questions. Question number 1. What am I believing to be true right now? Number 2, is it actually true? Number 3, what would it look like if I stopped believing this was true? Just because we had the thought or the feeling doesn't make it true. That just means we get to investigate that now, right? What am I believing to be true right now? Is it actually true? And what would life look like if I stopped believing that this was true? Ask yourself those questions as you move through this week. As you focus on what your lie is, see how those pop up daily. If you are trying to take notes, I took the time to go ahead and put together Instagram and Facebook posts that have each one of the lies broken down. So if you want that, you can go over there and find those. I hope this information and content finds you well. I hope it treats you well this week. Don't be afraid to go into some of the dark places, because once we come out on the other side, like we learned last week, the hero's journey always comes out on the other side after they face the darkness. I'm so glad that you guys were here. If you have any questions, email me, brandon@aimandanchorcoaching.com. If you want to schedule a free call where you and I can chat, go over to the website, aimandanchorcoaching.com, and you can schedule a call right from there, and then we can chat, and I can help you kind of suss out some stuff, and then maybe we can go further than that. I think that's all I have for you today. Be well, treat each other with kindness, and as always, give yourself a break. If you don't know what's holding you back in life, can you really move forward? That's the question. Be well, grace and peace.